Welcome to another episode of the Hidden Potential Podcast. I'm your host, Omar Hargrove, and today we're going to talk about how do I present myself with confidence while still staying authentic. And even more than that, how do I care about what people think without becoming fake, performative, or even self-protective. And as a leader, really just like as a normal person too, how you carry yourself matters. Your tone matters, your clarity matters, your presence matters, but none of those things are meant to come at the cost of who you really are. And today we're going to talk about what it means to present yourself with purpose through your words, through your posture, through your mindset, while still staying real, not rigid, but bold, not brittle. And we're going to talk about how you can be curious enough to keep growing without being shaken by every little opinion. So let's get into it with why presentation matters and why it's also not everything. So it's this idea that your first impression with people is something that they're going to remember about you for a long time. And the reality is that we make judgments with those first impressions. We make judgments just how people stand, how they dress, how they do their hair, whether or not they wear makeup. Like, we make all of these judgments about people. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. It's just something that automatically happens. And sometimes it may be fair, while sometimes it's not fair. But as leaders or creators or communicators or just workplace people, even as parents, how we present ourselves gives people a framework for whether or not they can trust us. And being able to have clarity and confidence are kind of like this hospitality to how we present ourselves. It's about making people feel safe and safe enough to even engage with us. So that said, this pressure to always be on or polished or impressive can quietly start to pull us away from who we really are. And this is where we start editing ourselves subconsciously. But what I want us to understand is that just really setting this framework up, that how you this idea of how you present yourself is this example of how you're being. It's this kind of hospitality of how you're presenting yourself in a way that people can feel safe enough to engage with you, safe enough to talk with you. And rather than second guessing our tone or posture or honesty, little by little, we end up trading authenticity for approval. That's not what we're trying to do. The goal isn't to impress people, okay? The goal is to be able to connect with them, to be able to lead them, to be able to stay grounded in who you were created to be as you are taking into account how you are representing yourself. Y'all feel what I'm trying to say with that? And it's this balance to where we shouldn't necessarily care what everyone thinks, but we should actually care what some people think. Like, we should care that we don't want to be written off just because someone judged a book by their cover, right? And it doesn't mean that we have to completely alter who we are, but for us to be aware of how certain things can affect the way people will or won't receive us. Okay, and before we get into these 4 pillars for leading confidently while still being authentic, I want to just paint a framework that a big place where this matters for me is being able to go to recovery centers, and I witness the gospel of Jesus as a Christian, as a pastor, and what we're talking about here is me caring about how those people see me. At the end of the day, I don't care in the sense that, like, I feel devalued if they see me this way or that way. But I care about how they see me, because how they see me will affect whether or not they listen to my message. And so when I go there, I am being intentional about all the parts of what they will first witness. From me even just wearing an eyebrow ring like that, while it's fashionable, it is one thing I did a couple years ago to where I always had an eyebrow ring, but I put it back in this experiment to see how people would respond to me differently who were not Christians. Like, how would they react Would they have their guards more down, or would they still be up? And I was able to see this dramatic difference on people's first impression. It was like this novelty aspect to where it made them curious just on this initial impression, because they would think, oh, I haven't seen this before. Again, it's not like this groundbreaking thing, but I noticed how this one little piece of how I presented myself actually mattered. Even when I go speak at places where people don't know me, I found out a couple years ago that if I show up a little too comfortable, if I'm only wearing a t-shirt and some like Vans, I still can look nice. I look, it's not like I look lousy, but I recognize that they responded completely different to me than when I would wear a collared shirt. And again, this is like part of my style. I like these shirts that I'm wearing. I'm not wearing this button-up suit, that's completely different than my normal day. But it's this idea that I recognize how people respond to even just the way that I dress, to where I want to bridge the gap in people's willingness and ability to trust me for a couple seconds, so to trust me for a moment, to be able to see whether or not they want to listen to what I have to say. I hope that this is making sense, to where we're not being fake, we're not being phony, but we are caring enough to where we are considerate of how we may appear to certain people, depending on, as simple as how we dress to how we stand, how we talk. All these things matter. So it leads us to this idea of presentation with purpose. You don't have to pretend to be someone else, but you do need to be intentional about how you present yourself. Whether it's speaking clearly, being able to project your voice, whether it's not shrinking your posture back, but trying to stand with a presence where you are allowed in this space. You don't want to go in a place where you're timid and shy. In the room, wherever you go. And don't over apologize for what you're there to do. I've seen this a lot, especially within early leadership, to where a leader will believe in something and say something, but then they'll immediately follow it up with an apology. Like, I know that not everybody may feel this way, but I may be right or wrong. And it's like this apology following what they're trying to say. Look, you can lead with a calm confidence. You don't have to apologize for your position or the impact that you're trying to make. So again, we're talking about this idea that I am able to present myself with purpose. You're not being fake by showing up prepared or being intentional. It's about being a good steward with your voice, with your influence, and making every possible decision, making every possible thing to be able to best impact the most amount of people, whatever it is, whether it's a workplace, even with just your own kids, whether it's you having to lead a team, whether it's you doing something that involves public speaking or planning, whatever, even just leading meeting, you're wanting to make the best impact of that time. That's why we're talking about this. And honestly, like, for me, it was a simple decision. Like, would it feel a lot more comfortable to sometimes just wear a t-shirt when I want to wear a t-shirt, especially if it's a shirt that I made? I mean, come on, I love the shirts that I make. But at the end of the day, if just wearing a collared shirt would give me a 10% boost of reliability or willingness to trust my message, would that 10% be worth it? Yes, I'm willing to take any percentage I can to make the time that I'm giving more effective. Now, let's go into this idea of clarity over complexity. People will follow clarity. They don't need you to say everything perfectly. They just need to understand what you're saying and why it matters. And if you're unclear, it will invite confusion. If you're vague, you will lose credibility. And so you need to be clear in what you're trying to do. What you want to be clear about, even what you value, what you're doing, why it matters, and how others can be a part of it. This is this simple idea of how being clear in this messaging. And I noticed that whenever we are a part of a team, or if we're trying to plan a project, even just for our family, when we write things down, it helps us to get clarity in our understanding. It helps us to be able to clarify things for ourselves. And then it makes it easier to translate that to other people. But if you find yourself consistently fumbling over what you're trying to say, maybe you need more clarity on it so it doesn't feel so complex. Break it down to where it's as simple as possible for you to be able to communicate clearly. It doesn't need to always be so pretty. It doesn't always need to rhyme. It doesn't always need to sound groundbreaking. It just needs to be clear. Start there and work your way up rather than starting at something complicated and trying to make it make sense. Start in the most easily understandable thing. That will be better than any kind of catchy gimmick. Now, it leads us to this idea of confidence with curiosity. This is this place where I notice that most people want to be humble. Like even on any like major well-known podcasts where there's like a professional speaking about a specific topic, you will normally hear them say, "Now look, I'm not trying to be an expert, but this is what I've noticed, or this is what I've studied." And even when it is their expertise, there is this humility about it that I think that most people have. This humble realization that you don't have all the answers. You could still be humble, confident with curiosity, and that's what we're talking about. It's this balance that a lot of us miss, to where we think that we have to either be totally humble to where we can't even be confident in ourselves, or we're overly confident to where we're pretending we got it all together to try to make it seem like we're faking it till we're making it, And you don't need to have all the answers in this. You just need to be able to carry yourself like someone who's not afraid to have conversation. Confidence says, here's what I believe, here is what I value, here is what I want to do. Curiosity says, I'm open to listening. I'm open to growing. It's not either or, and it is more so both and. It is this idea of combining this confidence where I know what I want to do, and I also recognize that I may need some help. I know what I want to happen. I believe that this will work, but I'm going to need help from others. I'm going to need to learn more. And it's this beautiful combination where you don't lose your authority for being open. You actually deepen your authority. You deepen, you give yourself greater depth of character. You don't lose your voice by listening, you actually sharpen it. And confidence without curiosity easily becomes arrogance. And most people don't like arrogant people. And the other side of the spectrum is curiosity without any confidence can easily become insecurity, to where you have nothing to stand on for yourself, and you just feel like you're in this constant state to where you're never really sure of anything. You need both curiosity and confidence, and we grow from there. And that leads us into authenticity over our image. Again, this idea about presentation, I want to be abundantly clear that I am not trying to tell anybody to pretend to be somebody they're not. What I am saying is that you're not going to be everyone's favorite, okay? But it is this idea of being yourself, but presenting that self in the best possible way that could be received. And if you do the opposite, if you try to be a people pleaser, or you try to be everyone's favorite, the more you try to do that, the less of yourself you'll become. Authenticity doesn't mean that you spill every thought or vent every emotion. It doesn't mean that you have to tell everyone yeah, I'm going to lead this project, but I also have an immense fear of failure. No, it means that you can still show up. You can be real. You can be honest. You can and be consistent and grounded in who you are and the role that you hold. Like with our kids, again, I want to make this a broad spectrum of how it can be received. With our kids, I often don't know what I'm doing. This is like the first time of me being a parent, right? And be that as it may, I'm going to move forward the best that I can, and I'm going to try to present myself as, this is what we're doing, kids. It's going to be okay. It's going to work out. This is going to be fun. And even though I want everyone to love it, there's times where maybe 2 out of 3 kids will like what we're going to do, right? Maybe if it's a really great day, maybe all of them will like it. But there's so many times where I'm presenting this confident path forward while I'm not telling the kids, like, kids, I actually don't know how to parent you. I really don't know if you're going to have to go through therapy because of the way I parented you. No, I'm not going to tell my kids that. But what I will tell them is, like, daddy still makes mistakes. I make mistakes, but I am doing my best. I always want to do a better job at being a good dad to you. And see, for my kids, they, even now at their young age, they resonate with that, to where I'm not, emotionally dumping on my kids, but I'm being honest in that that there's times where even dad makes mistakes, and they really surprisingly have great like depth to being able to handle that. And I think it translates to all these other places where this would apply, whether it's with a team of people that you're trying to minister to, anything, to where you can be confident, you can be real, and you can be honest and consistent and grounded in who you are, while being yourself and authentic, being a real person over just being right. And even especially, I had even someone just ask me last week. I was trying to lead a Bible study, and I realized that I actually didn't understand the scripture myself of what we were supposed to talk about. And so I didn't have the Bible study after all. And I said, well, it would be better for you to go into a meeting saying, hey guys, I gathered us today. We're going to still have our study. And I'm going to be honest that I felt confused over this topic. But I think that it's still something that we should all talk about. Even though I don't have all the answers, I don't want to pretend like I'm right on this thing. I thought we could still discuss it openly together. That would be better. Being a real person rather than just someone who always is right would have been a better received as you as a leader, compared to in a sense, like running away from the task because you couldn't prove that you were right on something. This is the idea of being honest over being impressive, being consistent over being perfect. People don't need a perfect leader. They just need a grounded one that's down to earth, one that is a real person. So again, for me, this journey, what I'm describing to you, I felt like is really personal to me. I felt like early on, I felt like I had to present a church version of myself or a public version of myself. And then the me that was not that I was a different person after church, but I felt like the me that was like my personality. It felt like I had to always conform to this pressure or conform to my surroundings. Once I started realizing that I could still present well without pretending, that I could pursue excellence without performing or being someone that I'm not, I found that I could lead from a real strength within myself. That I could admit when I was learning. I could admit when I felt confident enough. And when I started I feel like when I really turned the page and decided that I'm not going to wear these chains of pretending, that I'm going to be my real self, and there's going to be people that don't like it and people that do like it. The result was that I ended up ministering to more people. More people trusted me, and more people leaned into the mission that I was carrying. And I didn't feel this constant exhaustion of trying to manage this idea of who I was supposed to be, because I could just be myself. And it leads us to these kinds of questions to reflect on. Am I adjusting my voice to serve others, or am I adjusting my voice to avoid their judgment? Some deep questions to consider. Do I know what I stand for and communicate it? Am I able to communicate it clearly? Have I given myself permission to be curious rather than just me trying to convince? And where am I performing instead of showing up with presence and with purpose? Presence and purpose over just a performance. So I really hope that we could grasp today that no one here is meant to lead from a mask, and that you don't have to choose between confidence and authenticity, but you can present with purpose, you can speak with clarity, you can lead with confidence and curiosity, and still stay rooted in who you really are. So I hope that this was helpful for you. I hope that it made a difference in your life, your leadership, your general personhood. But until next time, have a great life. Well, there you have it. I hope that this episode was meaningful and edifying for your leadership and your growth within your ministry and organization. Could you do me a favor? Could you leave a rating and review for this podcast? It'd really help me out and help others be able to see this show in their feed. You can also visit homerhargrove.com to be able to learn more, connect, or become one of our supporters. Until next time, have a great life.